Welcome to Entrepreneur S.O.S. with your hosts, Monique Mall and Sandy Colleen. We help business owners navigate the often complex world of system, organization, and structure. Every week, we bring you expert advice or real-life stories from successful entrepreneurs who have overcome the challenges of building and scaling a business. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, this podcast is for you. So join us each week. Let's grow your business together. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps us reach more entrepreneurs just like you. On today's episode, we're talking all about how thoughts dictate your future and how to manage them more effectively to create more success and joy in your business. Hello, Sandy.
Hi. I love this topic. This topic.
Yes, this is one of our favorite topics. We're both it's very near and dear, I think, to both of our hearts.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts are things, right? I've mentioned that actually to a friend in Germany, and she said to me, "What do you mean by that? Thoughts are things." So actually, I recommended a book to her. Because it's such a complex subject, and it's a practice, right? It's a total practice. I was introduced to it as a philosophy, but I really look at it as a practice, as a daily practice that I don't want to by any stretch of the imagination master, because if I mastered it, my life would be perfect. But I think it's definitely something that I incorporate every day in my life. And if I have a negative thought, so the shifting that thinking, right? What do you do if you have like a super negative thought that comes into your mind?
So I'm going to roll back just 1 second, because I think the paradigm that we're talking about, for me, I don't know about you, how you were introduced to it. So I actually, until probably about 10 years ago, never really understood that thoughts were energy or things in the world. And there was a man that was introduced to me, but his name is Dr. Wayne Dyer. You know who Dr. Wayne Dyer is, right? And the first time I understood that what we think about, we bring about, it was like mind blowing to me. And it was really a simple exercise that I wanted to just kind of bring up. He talked about the idea of asking yourself if something's true. So I learned about this, it was 10 years ago. It was through network marketing. How did you actually come to understand about thoughts being things?
Well, it's different hearing about it the first time and actually really understanding it. So I actually heard about it like growing up from my parents, because they were into this kind of a thing. But I was a child and I heard them talk about it and I'm like, what on earth? But it was still around me, right? But I did not understand it. So fast forward, I don't know, 20 years from being a child, I started reading in different books about it. And Wayne Dyer was one, but also, many others. And there's a book called The Master Key System. I read that many, many years ago. I read numerous other things, but again, it always came up again, but I didn't really understand it until I took a deeper look and actually put it into practice, and literally started with, when I had a negative thought, say to myself, literally out loud, Control-Alt-Delete, because I like tech and I like computers, and that just was a good thing, like to cancel it out. So for me, again, it's something that I was pretty much raised with, but I didn't understand it until many, many years later.
And for me, it's so funny, because for me, I remember the exact moment I understood this, like that I actually understood the concept, not that I could put it into practice, y'all. Right. So just so you know, like understanding the concept, like you get it. Oh, now I get it. Doesn't mean you're good at it. Okay. I want to be really clear. I just understood it. So I was in a car, and it was kind of in the beginning of my network marketing career. And I would say that I was a miserable cow who was very negative. And I had a lot of, intrusive thoughts, whether it be from trauma growing up or just negativity. It's funny because I remember my dad, like you, and I never realized this until later in life, but he was reading a book called The Power of Positive Thinking which is a really great book. And I remember like being a young girl and seeing that on my desk. So I was I think it was in my life, like was interwoven, but I never really got it until I heard Wayne Dyer. I was listening to an MP3. It was called Excuses No More. I think
Excuses Be Gone.
Be Gone. That's it. Excuses Be Gone.
Yeah.
I still have the CD. I kid you not. I have it downstairs.
I have the book.
In case I ever need to listen to it again.
Do you have a CD player?
I do in my car, actually.
Oh, there you go.
I think I have one in my car. So anyway, so I'm listening to this CD, and this woman, he was talking to this woman. She was having this like thing that she was going through. And he asked her this question because she had this negative thought about herself. And his question was, is that 100% true? And I was like, oh my God. He's like, if you can't say yes, then you have to realize that there is a gap in your belief and your thinking. You think it's true, but it's not, intellectually. So for me, I know you do the Control-Alt-Delete. For me, when I have a negative thought comes up, so I digress now. When I have a negative thought that comes into my head, the first question I ask myself is that 100% true, Monique? And the minute my brain says no, I realize that is not a fact. It's a belief or a thought that my brain is, signaling about something, maybe due to fear or something else in my life. But the minute I realize it's not true, then I can move through it. So that was my kind of, that's kind of how I came to like pass through negative thinking. And then we were both introduced to so many books, one of them being this book. We both have it. We highly recommend you read this book. It's called Working with the Law by Raymond Hollowell. And we will link it to Amazon Books in the show notes. But we wanted to talk about this because both of us decided we wanted to reread this book just because it's so powerful. Because you hear about the law of attraction, right? I mean, and I study the law of attraction. I know you do too, but everybody doesn't realize there are so many other laws of the universe. One of them being the law of thinking.
The universal laws.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the law of thinking today and how your thoughts dictate your future and how you can effectively manage them better. So,
and to touch on that, Monique, when you said that you understood it, but putting it into practice, it's really true. It's like creating a muscle, right? And I had an incident happen to me on Friday that massively triggered me. And I went into mind and overdrive and whatever. And I realized, stop that, because I really believe that by thinking preceding that incident, I actually manifested it. I really, truly believe that I manifested it. And I have this happen to me, and I think you do too. And all of us, I really believe, do this, but some subconsciously and some realize that they're doing it. And for me, it really started with years ago when I put this into practice. Every day, I would tell myself, okay, today you are going to manifest seeing hearts or money or whatever, triangles, and then really manifesting that. But it's transferring that energy or sending out those frequencies, that vibration, the energy, and then you really see it. And I think we really, when I say see it, it's like we go through life. I can speak for myself with like foggy glasses. Like just before this, I cleaned my glasses because I couldn't see. Now I can see. And I think that's really something that a lot of us do.
Well, I mean, the thing about that, and it's funny, another book that I read was called like E Squared or something. Yep. And it talked about what you focus on, right? So if you think about seeing red cars, all of a sudden you're going to see a lot of red cars on the road. Or
what you focus on, you find, right?
Yeah. So what you focus on, you find. So like it comes the same in business. You're going to, and this does tie into the law of attraction, the law of thinking, but your thinking will create what your circumstances are. So if you're constantly having the thought that customers are difficult, guess what's going to happen?
Customers are difficult.
Customers will be difficult in your life, just so you know, y'all. So you have to really be aware of one, your words. And I think that's where people think, oh, the law of attraction, the law of attraction. They say their little affirmations in the morning and they think, oh, the whole world is going to bring everything into me. But what you don't understand, and what I think needs to be clarified, is the law of thinking precursors the law of attraction, because your thoughts dictate your words, which dictate your emotions. And if those aren't in the right state of flow, you're going to attract probably the things you don't want. So it's really being mindful of creating your thought processes and then making sure you're aware of your words, because those basically are the energy of your thoughts, and then your emotions as well. I mean, if you're saying I'm going to be a millionaire, in the back of your head, you're thinking, how am I going to pay for gas today? That is a paradigm.
Oxymoron.
Yeah, it's a paradigm where you won't attract what you want because you're still thinking about not having enough. And I know it's a really tricky situation because you're like, well, what about reality? And we're not saying that you shouldn't think about reality. Like there is, I think, Sandy, like I think there is a point where you have to be realistic about life, but it's trying to find the silver linings or trying to reframe your thoughts in a different way so that you're not looking at something from a negative perspective. Not everything, sometimes it's horrible if you don't have enough money in your bank account, but you can reframe it to say, okay, what opportunities does this present me today? How can I create something different in my life so that this doesn't look like this next week or next year? It's, I think, really controlling the way that you view things. So I don't know what your thoughts are around that.
Well, I 100% agree. And I've been listening to a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and
love him.
Right. And the way he talks about the emotion manifests itself in the body, and the body is the mind, right? The body is attached to the mind. So it is a fact of reprogramming, but it's not something that happens overnight. We all are human and we all still go into that. So I do 100% agree with you on the fact that, yes, we have to be realistic. And, I mean, if you have $5 in the bank, it doesn't mean you can go have $100 meal for, just simplicity reasons. But if you hone in on those $5, just the negative and the, oh my God, I'm broke, I'm poor, that does manifest itself. So yes, that's the fact, but you can snap out of it and you can change it. And I love his meditations because putting yourself, like being grateful for something that you don't have yet. So let's say you want to have $1 million in the bank, but you have $100 in the bank. Getting into that state of feeling grateful for having $1 million, which of course doesn't happen overnight, because if you've never had, or 100,000 or whatever, if you've never had that in your bank, how do you put yourself into that? But making it realistic and being grateful, being in that state before it happens, that's the practice. And that is a practice, and it can be a long practice.
So I remember, so that was one of the first things that I did, actually. There's a book by Rhonda Shimes. What's it called? She talks about gratitude. Do you remember which one it is?
Yeah. I know exactly which one. I think I have it here. Yeah.
Okay. So it's a book where you basically go through, I think it's 30 days.
You're right. It's like a workbook. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So and we'll link this in the show notes, because honestly, if you struggle with negative thoughts and you're on the beginning of this journey, this book was really, really instrumental for me, because it taught me how to find gratitude in the smallest of things. So basically,
if I could just interrupt 1 second, she's the one who wrote The Secret and The Power.
Correct.
So, and she has this workbook. And go ahead, because I forgot about that. And that is a great practice.
It is an amazing practice. So I was in my negative Nancy days, right? This is probably 2013. I don't even know, 13-ish. So I needed to change the way I thought. And I got this book. And basically it compounds your gratitude over 30 days. So you start with one exercise and then you do that exercise and then you do another exercise, which compounds on the day before. So by the day 30, you have done like 30 days of gratitude for different things, but they compound on each other in a way. So it taught me how to immediately go to gratitude around something. So I struggle, and I'm very transparent about this. I struggle with some depression in my life and anxiety. And when I'm in those dark spots, or if I feel like I wake up and I'm just in a dark spot, like I'm just not peppy, I will immediately, and I do it every day, no matter what, but I go into gratitude for even my pillow. Like I'll be like, oh my God, this is the softest pillow. It's so comfortable. I'm so blessed that I have a bed to sleep in and that I have warm covers and that I have a wonderful house. And immediately it changes my energy. Right. And so that's the key, is like being aware enough that you're in that spot, but then going to gratitude. And that was the first thing. And I think that would be the first thing we could tell people to effectively start to change how you think, is to be grateful. And not just, like we said, don't be grateful. Just, I am grateful for this. I am grateful for this. Like practice it all day. One of the things that I love to share with people, and I do to this day, Sandy, because of that book, every time I turn on my water faucet, I think that I have clean water to drink in my life.
And don't have to go to a well.
It's crazy. Every single time. It's so ingrained with me. You have to understand, most of you don't understand, like if you have clean drinking water in this world, you're better off than like 90% of the people in the world. Like you have to understand, some people walk 10 miles to get water. So just the simple fact that I have water, and I practice that all day. So then think about, that's how I started to shift my mind. For me, it was like, I had to be really vigilant because I can go to someplace real dark real quick.
And talking about that, so I've had those times in my life where I was like in victim mode and everything was horrible. And trying to find something I'm grateful for in my eyes, was like impossible. In those cases, I always went to one of my dogs. Right now it's Luca. Because that love and that gratitude, or, something, there is something, a partner, an animal, a horse, a cat, a dog, a guinea pig, a bird, just something. And it just overcomes you with love and gratitude. And also that always shifts me. If I'm like, again, on Friday, I went a little bit, not long because I catch myself quicker now, but I went and I cuddled that dog right behind me, Luca. Because that dog, that love that pours out, and the gratitude I have for him being in my life and for him finding me, and whatever it is for you, there is something, even if it looks super dark. And the other thing that I always try, or that I not try anymore, I really do it, is if something horrible happens, some crap happens, I find something positive. Yes. There's always something good and something bad. An example that you've maybe heard before is just a very simple. If you've had an accident, a car accident, and the car is damaged, but you're okay. Instead of like, oh my God, the car is broken and shit, and I have to take it. No, I'm okay. I'm grateful that I am okay. The car can be fixed. And like you, Monique, I have that, what you have with your running water, I have with the lights. Every time, I don't want to say every single time, but every day, at least once or twice, when I turn the light on in the morning or in the evening, I'm like, gosh, am I grateful? Because there have been times, I used to live in Florida when we didn't, when there were a lot of storms and we lost power and there was no light and there was no electricity. And like you said, there's a lot of people in the world that don't have electricity and that don't have light, right?
So yeah, it's so incredible that I mean, and there's nothing wrong with having like, and here's something I want to say, you're going to have negative thoughts. Like there is
every day,
guys, like nobody, you're not enlightened beings. Okay.
Well, like, maybe you are, but I'm not.
Yeah. Maybe you are. Exactly. I'm not either. So, I mean, the fact that you have them, don't beat yourself up for it. That was the other thing, is like, have some grace for yourself around it. Like, hey, wait, that's a negative thought. If you're catching it, And you're like, or maybe you get into a little bit of a spiral. So I'm a huge Abraham Hicks fan. I love them. And one of my favorite examples of how they talk about how a thought can dictate how your day goes is, and thinking like with Joe Dispenza, because we've been talking a lot about that, is she talks about how they live in San Francisco, and she always talks about like the hills there. And she's like, now imagine you have a car and one of these big hills in San Francisco, and your negative thought car is the negative thought at the top of the hill. And the car starts to roll, but you're able to catch the car before it really kind of gets moving and it's on the hill. You're able to stop that, and you're able to stop that vehicle. She's like, but if that car just starts to gain a little bit of momentum down that hill, there's no stopping that car and you're going to crash. Right. Oh. She's like, so your thoughts are the same thing. Like, as much as it sounds like you have to, and this was something that when I really understood, like, I have to be aware of them.
Yes.
Like, let's be honest, we're not perfect. Some days we go on autopilot, some days we react. But if you can be even 50% aware of what you're speaking or what you're thinking, your life will dramatically change in a positive way. Because one, it'll be way more fun to be around. Like, you will realize that suffering is something that we don't necessarily have to have. We choose. And this is true because you can go to very, very poverty-stricken places like Africa, and you will find people that are just as happy as anything, if not happier, because they don't base their happiness on outside circumstances. So, but to be very, very aware, right? And I think that's, another thing that we can say, if you want to manage your thoughts, you have to be vigilant in the awareness of it. And how do you keep yourself aware, Sandy?
Well, first of all, and that's a great question. First of all, it's come through practice. Again, guys, I've been practicing this for many years. And like Monique said, Friday, I had a super negative thought. So I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I've become very aware if there's a negative thought. And to be honest with you, sometimes if I'm aware of the negative thought, I still dwell in it because it's like, it's a bit of an addiction. It's like, poor me, it's a bit of an addiction until
the emotional juice we get off of
it. Exactly. And it's like, oh my God, poor me. It's like, oh, but then I'm like, shut up, Sandy, wake up. So what do? It's literally like a pattern interrupt. And I tell myself, and again, this incident, it's really a great example. Friday, the incidents that happened, I went into massive, poor me and victim and whatever. And then I realized it happened for a reason. And then what is the lesson I'm supposed to learn? And then I try to find something good in it, because the situation actually allowed me to work through something that I'd been holding on to. Now, is it always that easy? No. Does it take practice? Yes. And do you want to, or do I sometimes want to even hear that? No. Because, it can be hurtful and it can be painful, but working through that actually caused me to have massive relief. And I used to do Control-Alt-Delete. I'm at a point now where when I catch a negative thought, I'm like, change your story. And I think of something positive. Or if it's more deep-seated, I meditate, or I go for a walk, or I snuggle my dog. Because again, the energy, the vibration of an animal, and for me, I'm an animal person and I have dogs. The vibration of an animal always raises my vibration, to not to sound woo-woo, but it does always.
There's that transfer
energy.
Of love.
Yep,
I mean, dogs vibrate at most
unconditionally.
Dogs are unconditional. So there's that unconditional love. I mean, again, you take a nap. I mean, here's the thing, guys. If you're in a spot where you just can't get out of it, like you're just like, woe is me, the world is ending. My life is horrible. I can't, my business is sucky. My family, whatever is going on in your life that is very negative. If you can't stop the car from rolling down the hill,
the loop, right?
Yeah. The loop in your head, then take a nap, go do something else, go ride your bike, go for a walk, go read a book, take a bath. It doesn't matter. do
Interrupt the
something.
pattern, basically.
Yes,
Interrupt the pattern.
the pattern, and it will make a huge difference in the day. You know, it was funny. I listened to a YouTube every morning. Today happened to be Dispenza. I let the universe pick it for me. I just kind of whatever pops up, I listen to. And after that, it was interesting because I haven't listened to him in a long time. Dr. Bruce Lipton came up.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so this guy, if you don't know who Dr. Bruce Lipton is, I highly suggest you Google this man. He wrote a book called The Biology of Belief. Again, we're going to talk about how critical your thinking is and your belief. So what you don't understand is your thoughts create beliefs. Okay. And those beliefs will dictate how you show up in the world, how things best for you in the world. And he wrote this book, and basically what he was talking about today in this video, which reminded me of something that I struggle with in my health. He talked about the body, right? And how our body is really controlled so much by our thoughts. Now, this may be too woo-woo for you, and that's okay. But basically how our cells are like mini receivers, and our thoughts are really that energy is what creates and can change them. And he's seen this. By the way, he's actually done
it's science. It's science. It's not just woo-woo. He does measure it. He does
measure it. He has, it's called the placebo. And so here's the thing. There's two different effects. There's the placebo effect, which is where you believe you are better off. And then there's the nocebo effect, which you don't believe you're better off. So you get to choose, right? So you got to ask yourself, if you have the choice, why would you choose the nocebo? Why wouldn't you always go with the better of the two choices? But in a summary, what he was saying is that our thoughts are so powerful that they can manipulate and change our body. And again, if don't take it for my word, go get his book, go look him up. He's done a ton of science on this. The same with Joe Dispenza. They have a ton of brain scans on this. And they've seen people change and literally manipulate the cells in their body through their thinking. So think about how powerful that could be for your business, for your day-to-day, how you interact with people, how you create wealth. It really could change the spectrum of your whole future.
And talking about that, Monique, I read a quote the other day, and I can't remember who it was, but it says, every cell is eavesdropping on your inner dialogue.
Exactly. I love that.
And to me, that just really just was so on point, because every cell in our body is eavesdropping. And that's why I really am a true believer. And I've read lots of books and YouTubes and movies, and What the Bleed Down the Rabbit Hole, that's Joe Dispenza. It's a movie. Highly recommend it, because it's all based on this topic and it has the science in it. Really, truly believe that, and this is what Dr. Dispenza says, that 97% of disease is caused by an emotion.
Yeah, now, that's what Bruce Lipton said. I think it was 95. He said was
right.
Caused by
and Joe Dispenza
beliefs,
right.
Beliefs.
And I've said this to people that I know that are super negative and attached to drama and good friends. I wouldn't just say this to anybody because it's harsh, but I'm very direct. And I will say, you are going to give yourself cancer. Because I really, truly believe when we are so negative and so involved in drama and that negative self-talk, and again, I have it too. I'm not saying I don't, but not constant. And I know some people that are constant and they can't get out of that loop. And again, I truly believe some people are they're addicted to that emotion. They're addicted to that victim. They want the attention because they get a lot of attention. Poor you, poor whatever. But I do believe we can manifest disease.
The ego is very addicted to that. So our ego sense of who we are is addicted to those types of behaviors, and that forms from a lot of things, guys. I mean, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole.
Right.
But, so here we go. So you have gratitude, you have being aware, you have pattern interrupt. What's another thing that we can talk about that can help somebody to change their thoughts? Anything else that you have that you think is a brilliant thing that you've done in your life?
I mean, I don't know if it's brilliant, but when I have a thought like that, I usually ask myself, well, what is the worst case scenario? So if this and this happens to you, what's the worst case scenario? Are you going to die? Because and this is going really deep and I'm not going to go into it, but it really just, for the most part, if we go deeper and deeper and deeper and why and why and why and why, it's a fear of something. And oftentimes it's a fear of dying. And I ask myself the question, so what's worst case scenario? And then usually I have to laugh because I laugh at myself and I bring humor into it. I'm like, don't take yourself so fucking seriously, Sandy, because you really aren't that important in the whole scheme of things. That's where I go. I don't know if that's brilliant, but that's what I do.
Nice. I was thinking about something as you were saying that, as we were talking about thoughts and what's the worst case scenario. And it kind of made me also think of that experiment that they've done, I think, on both plants and rice. I just saw this where they had 2 bags of rice. I think it was one they whispered really good things to, like, you're beautiful rice, you're so white, and whatever. They had this like really good comments, really good thoughts. And then the other bag of rice, I think, was it rice? Or maybe I think it was rice, was negative thoughts and negative self and negative talk. And after I think it was 30 days, the negative rice was moldy and the white rice was not. And I think they've done this with plants as well.
Yeah.
Where the plant will flourish with the positive thoughts and
the other will wither.
Other will wither. And so you have to really think about that, guys. Like, what is it that you're saying to yourself every day? Are you withering yourself away, or are you setting yourself up to flourish and be in an environment where you can grow? And that's what our thoughts really do to us. Sandy, I want to read that. Can I read that excerpt that we love?
Absolutely. I love it.
There's an excerpt from this book that I highlighted that we think is just amazing. So, if we have any problems, it is because we are not controlling our ideas. Nature has no problems because she is orderly and disciplined. Self-control consists of organized through direction. That is, we start out with a well-defined aim or objective, think towards it continuously, not just for 30 minutes, plan our time, work so that we are working steadily towards our goal. We fill our days so full of constructive duties that there is no room for idle chatter or waste of any kind to enter in. This development will enable us to move steadily upward towards success. When all things are in harmony and order, problems will cease to be perplexities and mysteries will cease to be mysterious. Knowledge and understanding will supplant fear and ignorance, and that which was invisible will become visible. That which is unknown will become known. Life, with its circumstances, is no longer an enigma, but a clear interpretation of the law of thinking. What we are according to our state of thinking, we attract only what we think or create. Now, I don't know about you guys, but listen to that like 4 or 5 times, and then you're just going to be like, I personally think that's profound.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we think if we just focus for like 30 minutes on one thing, the world will like become great. Like this is like the law of thinking is, and it's interesting because in network marketing, I feel like it gets a little bit of a bad rap. But if you look at anyone who's really successful, they're obsessed with what they're doing. They're not just thinking about it one time a day. They're thinking about it all the time. Like, I mean, within reason, I'm sure there's some balance, right? But they're constantly thinking about their success and how they can be more successful. They're not sort of kind of thinking about it. They're all in.
And talking about that is they're also visualizing. They're thinking, visualizing and thinking and seeing what it is that they want to achieve. If they're living in a crappy condo and they want to be in a house on the beach, they are seeing themselves and grateful for being a house. They are literally as if it's already happened. And it does happen oftentimes.
And that goes back, I think, to the whole like placebo, non-placebo thing.
Yeah.
So this is something that's crazy that once you understand it, like you can't not know this. Your brain does not understand the difference between imagination and reality if you attach sensory and emotion to it. So if you are thinking about laying in a pool next to a big old mansion on the seaside, let's just say that's your thing, and you think about how the breeze is, and you think about how cool the water feels, and you're sipping on your mata, and you think about how it tastes, and you're visualizing the scenery and what the sun looks like and the house, and you're in that moment, like you're so in that moment, your brain doesn't know the difference. So you have to train yourself to understand that, because that will then take your brain to get you towards that reality.
And I actually manifested that with a car, with a very specific car down to the color. And it happened. And I wasn't even aware that it happened, because when I went to go buy a new car, look at a new car, I came home with that car that then I was like, oh my God, that's the car that I had been thinking about. And Connor's like, he saw it because I had it on a vision board, which is a whole nother thing, but I also visualized it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's even the same color. And right now, because my goal is to have a house in Italy, and I see that house and I know what it looks like. And I see myself there drinking my cafe, my espresso, and being on the terrace overlooking the sunflower seeds. I see, I feel, I taste the breeze. But then again, it's not like I have that positive moment. So there are still like, is that ever going to happen? So when I'm 100% there, I do believe in my heart and soul, I know that it's going to happen. And I think that's, again, it's a practice and it does not happen overnight. But I think for me, because I'm a big meditator, it ties into the visualization. And I got out of the habit a little bit of visualization, but I'm getting back into that after my meditation, because it's so, for me, so powerful.
They say 5 to 10 minutes of that a day of visualization, again, will help change your thoughts. This very townhouse that we live in, when I was imagining where we would live in North Carolina before we moved here, kid you not, guys, this is what I looked for. I was looking for a little townhouse. I liked the stone, because I knew that was like our next stepping stone, right? And so now, like you, Sandy, I kind of stopped. I stopped that practice. And guess what? Things have gotten stagnant. Yeah. So now it's time to think bigger. And that's what, when people hear like think like a child, like that's what it means.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Think big, have that imagination, put it out there. Don't be afraid to dream, because those thoughts will again help you dictate your future. Like, don't be afraid to think about what you want your future to be.
Isn't it crazy how kids have all these, I'm going to ride a white horse into the sunset. I'm going to have this, I'm going to be Cinderella. And they have all these dreams. And then as we get older and older, it gets boom.
We get jaded.
Jaded in society, and getting back, that child, being that child and having that imagination and that vision and the dreaming. It's so powerful. Be that child.
It really is true. So I hope this helped, guy. I hope this helped, because your thoughts, if you're struggling in your business, the first place you really want to look is, what are you thinking about on a daily basis? Yeah. If you're thinking about your business is struggling, it is likely that's what's going to happen. Yeah. If you're thinking that your business is going to rock it out and you're going to have opportunities come to you, you're going to start looking for those solutions, because that's how your brain works. So Sandy, do you have anything else you wanted to add to this episode? If this is something that you are new to, this is going to be a game changer for you.
Right. The only thing that I would add is start small. Start small, and start, for those of you that, I'm sure a lot of you have heard it and maybe even practice it. Go back to practicing gratitude and writing it down. I know it sounds so cliche, write 5 things that you're grateful for, but if you not just write it, but feel it. And again, I think that book by Rhonda Byrne will be super. So we'll definitely put it in the show notes. And it doesn't take long. But it's a great habit and a great muscle to start building.
Yeah. I think it's like a 10-minute thing that every day. And then it would, the way it goes is like, as you progress, it'll help you to do that all day during your day.
Yep.
Like there were certain things like you had to pick. And then every time you did that, that's how I started those practices. So I agree, and also the one thing that I love that you said, and something that I know Mel Robbins does, is she looks for hearts when she goes on hikes and things, and look for, like, ask yourself to start focusing on those things. Like I do that when I'm on a hike. Like I'll say, I want to see a purple flower. So I'm going to look for purple flowers. And then, somehow that will be manifested. Maybe sometimes it's not even like a flower on my hike. It could be I walk up to a car and there's a sticker and there's the purple flower. So don't always think it's going to be exactly what you want. It's going to manifest if you think about it, but it's not always exactly the way you think it needs to be. That's the other thing I think that I would part you with is don't be so literal that you are attached to the outcome so much. Like it has to be a purple flower on the path. It could be a sticker on a car and you're like, oh, the universe is listening. I'm controlling my thoughts. I'm controlling what I focus on a daily basis. And those little practices, even driving down the road, I know I'm going to see a BMW, right? And then watch how many all of a sudden show up for you. And you can start doing those little practices to control your focus, which then will help you to start controlling your thoughts.
Thoughts or things.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was fun. And we'll see y'all next week.
Make sure to smash that subscribe button. We want to be able to help as many people as we can, and share it to your friends. We love a share, guys. We love a share.
Have a great day.